Well, YouTube, this is Chuck, and I'm sitting here in my kitchen this afternoon, and got a video on kind of an oddball subject for you, something a little bit different. And today I'm telling you about being, I guess, appliance repair boy, I guess. So let me tell you what happened. My clothes dryer is about 15 years old, and a few days ago I noticed that it wasn't getting hot anymore. Well, it's an electric clothes dryer, and what generally happens with those is it's generally the heating element. And I've had to replace this one before. They last about every 3 years, and so immediately I figured that's probably what it was. So I went and tested it, and sure enough, that's what it was. So I ordered one from Amazon, and it came in. And so today we're going to change that, and I'm going to take you along, and I'm going to show you how to test them and show you how to change it out. But I'm also my laundry room's pretty tight in there, so it's a real hard place to film, especially with a camera phone. So I'll do the best I can to take you along, and I guess with that, let's get going. Let's get her done. Now, the first thing you have to do to diagnose the problem is take off that cover right there, and that's pretty easy to do because there's one little 1/4 inch screw right there, and there's another one in the other corner. And once you take that off and then lift that up a little bit, it'll come right off. So then you look up in here, and the heating element for the dryer is right behind this thing right here. And these two wires, I don't know how well you can see them, but the two wires right there, that's the two wires for the heating element. So what you got to do is you got to unplug them. And then once you unplug them, in order to test it to make sure that the heating element, that it is indeed the heating element, is you take your multimeter. Okay, and you set it to the ohms. Let's see if I can prop this in here where you can see it. All right, see that setting where it says 1? Well, if you touch the two probes together, whoop, see, there it goes away, right? Okay, that shows there's no resistance. But when you undo it again, it goes back to 1. So if you want, so when you test this, and see if I can do this with one hand. I did it the other day with one hand, but I wasn't holding the camera at the time. So you put one on that probe and one on the other probe, and then you look. Didn't change, did it? Right? There's no continuity through that. That tells you that that heating element is burned out. It's real easy to check it. Now right down here, I have the new one. I ordered it from Amazon. And what we're going to do, there's that same connection right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and set it down here so you can see it. And then I'm going to touch these two probes to these two contact points. I can do this with one hand. Okay, look, see what happened to it. See, there it goes. It's got resistance. There it is. When you take it loose completely, you get that, stays on 1. When you touch the two together, you have continuity. Okay, we did not have continuity on the old one. That's what tells us the old one is bad. So there's no way I can change this and hold the camera at the same time. So I'll kind of bring you back and I'll show you what I'm doing. So I'll be back here in a little bit. Now to take this assembly out, all you really need to do is take one screw out right there. It's a little hard to get to because you have to use a socket. But these are the two connections for the burner, or for the element itself. Okay, this is a thermal overload, and this is another sensor. And so you have to unplug these. It's easier to take this one out because it's got kind of a funky plug on it, but it's only 2 screws. So you take that out, the whole assembly, the back part of this actually slides into a socket. So the only thing it's really held in there by is this one screw down here in the front. So once you get it out here, then you can take 4 screws here. You can see what, 1 there, 1 back here, and then 2 on the other side. And then this assembly will come apart. And then we'll take a look at that old element and I'll show you what happened. Okay, now we've got it apart. We can see the element. There's the top part. And it took 5 screws. There's the screws on the side, and then one of the screws on the top of this little sensor had to come out as well. But let me show you where the bad spot was and what caused this. If you look real close, right, let's see if I can get it on the camera here. Right there. See where that's separated? Let me see if I can set the light there. I can show you with my finger. Right there. I can hold that still enough where you can even see it. Better in that light. There you go. See where that burned apart right there? All right, right in the center of the picture is where it burned apart. That's our problem. That's what caused the issue. That's why this thing went out. So now all we got to do is lift it out and set the new one in. So back in a minute. Okay, there's the new one in place. And we'll start reversing everything and put everything back together. Once more, there's the old one laying here on my kitchen counter. You can tell they get pretty hot over a period of time. This has been used for about 3 years now. But you can see the failure. You saw the failure point on it. So now we're going to finish putting this thing back together. Now I got this assembly all back together. It's right here on the floor. And it's ready to go back in there. And that's the socket where the round end goes. But before I do that, I want to point out a couple things. Number one is it's a good idea to clean any of the lint and stuff out of here. So I'm going to go bring my shop vac in here and clean that up as much as possible before I put it back in. If you wonder what that gray square thing back there is, that's actually a counterweight. It's a piece of concrete, and it's designed to keep the dryer from shaking when it's turning. Now, some other maintenance issues on these things is the drive belt, which you can see right there. If the dryer won't turn, that drive belt needs to be changed. In order to change that, you have to take the drum clear out. One other serviceable part are those rollers. And there's 3 of them on the back side there. In order to get to those to take them out, what you actually have to do is you actually have to finish taking the top off of this thing and then taking the front off of it. And once you do that, you can lift the drum clear out of it. It's pretty simple. So another thing I'm going to do before I put this thing back together and call it good is I'm going to pull this front cover here off of it, and because back in there, okay, that's the vent to the outside, and it gets lint buildup in there. So this thing here needs to be taken off so I can check and make sure there's no lint buildup. If it catches fire up in there, that little sensor right there, right where the light's shining, right there, that's supposed to shut the thing off. So in case there's a high temperature or something like that goes on. But changing this element out is actually a pretty straightforward, simple thing, and be a lot easier if I had a little bit more room in here. Another thing that made this one a little bit easier too is that my dryer is actually set up on a stand. It's not right down on the floor. It actually has this drawer assembly right there where you can store your cleaning supplies in it. Let me back there, and maybe I can back that up and you can see it a little better. So my dryer actually sits on top of that, and that gets it off the floor a bit. And because of the fact, let me pivot around here, and you can see I don't have a lot of room in here. In order to get these things out of here, I actually have to take if I get to take the washer out, I have to take the dryer out first, and there's a door off to my right, and it won't even fit through the door. I have to take the door completely off the hinges in order for this even to fit, to get it in here. So when they built this house originally, it would have been a little bit better if they built a little bit bigger laundry room. So anyway, you can see how much lint buildup gets in there, dust. I'm going to clean all that up before I put it back together. And then, like I say, I'm going to pull that cover right there off and check and make sure there's not a big buildup of lint inside there. So I'll bring you back when I'm done, and I'll show you, we'll show you that it works. Okay, there you see I've got it all cleaned up in there. And I went ahead and pulled this front cover off. There's only 4 screws to it. And there's actually the fan. And I haven't cleaned it yet. You can see there's a little bit of lint. It's not real bad. The front piece that comes off, I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to show you this. It's sitting here in my lap. And if you look down inside there, you can see there's a fair amount of lint built up in there. And then down here, right at the base of that, there's lint down in there too. So it's not as bad as it could be, but it's bad enough that we're definitely going to have to clean it. I'm going to take this out in the garage and clean it, and then I'm going to use the shop vac on this. It's real tight quarters in here, and that shop vac makes a god-awful bunch of noise, so I can't bring you along to show you that part. But this is where I'm at. I've got to clean everything up, put everything back together. Now, in order to get this piece off, the most complicated thing is you got to take the filter out of there, and then there's 4 screws. There's one up here, and one down here someplace, and a couple over here that hold this whole thing together. It's not real complicated. They're just, all it takes is a 1/4-inch nut driver to take them off. But I'm going to work on this, try to clean this up a little bit, and I'll be back with you again. Okay, now it's all back together. If you look up in there, you can see the new element. We cleaned up all the dirt. We put this back on, front cover here back on. So now what are we going to do? We're going to test it. So how are we going to test it? Well, we're going to turn it on and see if that element gets hot. I can reach up there and I can push buttons. I'm not sure what it did here. Oh, you got to hold it. That's what it is. There it is. I'm going to watch this for a little bit. Put my hand up in there. Feel the thing. Yep, I can feel heat. There it is. Starting to glow. You see it glowing back in there. So we know we got her. You wonder why that makes that noise. It's because one of these days I'm going to have to get in there and replace all those rollers. That's going to be a big job. I'm not going to do that today. But one of those rollers, there you go. Look at that element glow. Now you know how hot that silly thing actually gets. I'm going to turn this back off. There we go. And I'm going to put this last cover back on. And then I'll come back and give you a wrap up. So we got it done. And I'm going to call it a win. So what tools did we actually need? Really not all that much. Need a 1/4-inch nut driver, and there's one of those you can't reach with that, so this is just a 1/4-inch drive, 1/4-inch socket, and a little ratchet. Need a decent light. I prefer using these. It's actually a headlamp. I prefer using these over a regular flashlight. I think they work better. A pair of needle nose pliers. It does a couple things. It helps you get the electrical connections apart, and actually those electrical connections need to be snugged up just a little bit before you plug them back in. And in order to test out, figure out what you need to start with, you need a multimeter. But there's the offending part. It's going to go in the trash. And let me come back to you in just a couple seconds here with a recap. Okay, it's all done, and the washers or the dryer's working fine. And a couple little hints is that if you don't trust yourself in knowing where the wires go when you start unplugging stuff, and stick the light up in there, light it up good, and then take a picture with your phone, and that way you can go back and use that as reference to make sure you get all the wires plugged back in the right spot. The other thing I'll tell you too is the first time you use it, there's a pretty good chance it's going to smell like hot electrical, and it might even make that load of laundry smell like hot electrical. So just be prepared for that. That'll go away after 1 or 2 uses. So I guess to recap the whole thing is, you could tell by watching the rest of the video, the part in the middle here, that it's not a very difficult job, and it didn't really take very long. So what did it cost? Well, that heating element was about $20 at Amazon. And they've been about the same. I think it was about the same last time I ordered one. That was about, I think, 2021 sometime. But anyway, how much would it have cost if I had an appliance repairman come? Well, those guys don't come cheap anymore. And he'd come over here and took a look at it, decided that's what it was, and basically did the same thing I did, decided that's what it was. And then he'd ordered it and come back a week later and put the part in, and he would have also charged well more than Amazon did for that heating element. And I would think by the time you're done, you're probably talking well north of $200 for that service call just to do that. So I'm gonna have to get in there one of these days and replace that roller, because you could hear that roller making a bit of noise. And they're plastic, and what happens to them, of course, they operate in a high heat environment, and eventually they start to break down, and you start getting a little flat spot on them, and they start going punk, punk, punk when it goes around. And so I'll have to change those at some point in time, but I think it's okay for a little while. So anyway, we did it. We got her done. It's working, and we saved ourselves a bunch of money in the process, and the job wasn't really all that difficult. So I guess that's a wrap on this video. So as I always tell you, take care of each other and love each other, and I'll be back on another one here pretty quick on probably another subject, but for right now, I guess there's nothing more to do than just tell you peace out.